Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of D.E.I. Deathwatch, where we chronicle the downfall and the doubling down of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm your host, Scribelight. It's Monday. Musical Monday. So, update in Scribe World. X finally decided to take away my Premium Plus status after trying to charge me $395 for the last week, when I didn't want to pay $395. So now we'll see what happens if I try to re-up my X account with the downgraded status. The reason I say this is because usually I'd be simulcasting on X, but now that my premium was shut down, I'm not simulcasting on X. So if you were expecting to see this simulcasted on X, you're not seeing it. But hopefully that'll be rectified in the near future. I'll get the slightly less powerful account status, and we'll fix it up. Anyway, that's all beside the point. Who's joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon? Noah Sencio, good afternoon. Zach Osborne, hello. Radshord89ish. Hello, folks, folksettes, folks, minions of the zoo, and 7 witches of DEI magic. Do I know you by another name? I'm having to, as I've said before, reassess my entire memory when it comes to people's avatars and the names I might know them by. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Blue-Eyed Scream, hello. Simon Willikins, good afternoon. Kieverdam, hello. And thank you, Kieverdam, as always, for providing the fundraiser link. Guys, at the top of the chat box, there's a link to a GoFundMe. A longtime follower, Terrasin, or Evelyn, her house burned down. And she and her boyfriend and pets need help in the recovery from that, which is obviously not an easy thing to do when your house burns down. She's only looking for $5,000, $627 raised so far, so quite a bit to go. If you have the ability to donate, please do so. I know it's holidays and it's tough, but if you have a couple of bucks to spare, please consider donating there. But even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that, and thank you, Kieverdam, for providing the link. Walter Tomaszewski, hello to you and George and Philip. Putty Tats, all of them. Some Namgyol Nation, hello. Old Guy Gamer, hello. Unfair Ophelia, good afternoon. Adabisi, hello to you. Robert Pincus, hello. Zan Wild, good afternoon. Adam Nixon, afternoon. Mike Savage, blarg. Anthem Ward, hello. Anybody else? Scrolling. You're Raymond. All right, Raymond. I'll make my best effort to remember that for the next time. Jay Blizza, good afternoon. Morgan King, hello. And I think that's everybody. Although I did see in the Discord that Shady Grin has a birthday today. I don't know if Shady Grin is here. If Shady Grin is here, make yourself known, and I will sing you happy birthday. But if you're not here, but you see this later, happy birthday. Special Emissary is here. You're not the emissary, are you? Are you Captain Sisko? Sorry, Commander Sisko before he became captain? You know what I mean. Let's see. Subscribable. Yes? Can I get your opinion on the First Amendment? Auditing. Have you ever looked into it? First Amendment auditing. I know that there are videos out there about it. I always kind of associate it with like kind of sovereign citizen type stuff. But other than that, that's the most that comes to my mind right now. So the answer is I know of it. Other than that, I don't know much about it. And so I haven't looked into it per se. So there you go. Let's see. I don't see a Shady Grin. Okay, so Shady Grin, if you watch this in the future, happy birthday. And the next time that you're on, remind me, and I will sing you happy birthday. But let's get into today's stories. We've got a few. You may remember, last week's show was titled DEI in Decline, Black Women Most Affected? And we read an article from Forbes giving us the lowdown. Such as it was, trying to say that DEI goes sideways, and so there's only one demographic that's affected badly. And I kept having to read that Thomas Sowell quote. What is that Thomas Sowell quote? When people get used to preferential treatment, equal treatment seems like discrimination. Because for years, DEI has preferenced primarily people of color and women, or the combination thereof. And now, with it in decline and things kind of moving back towards you got to prove your worth, not just your aesthetic, feels like discrimination. Well, what a difference a week makes, guys. Because last week it was black women most affected. So what happens today? A week later? Well, Trump's attack on DEI may hurt college men, particularly white men. Because as you guys know, DEI was rampantly detrimental to the futures and the fortunes of white men. The Trump administration's ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion also targets gender. As in, it targets not using gender as a decision point. The ban may impact gender balancing practices that often benefit college men. Well, here's the thing, and before I read this article, I haven't read it yet. I'll stipulate, okay, for the sake of argument, let's say, for the sake of argument, that DEI inordinately benefited white men as a demographic. Unfairly. And now white men have to compete just like everybody else. I'm failing to see a problem here. But moving on. Brown University, how auspicious, one of the most selective institutions in America, attracted nearly 50,000 applicants who vied for just 1,700 freshman seats last year. Okay, so 50,000 applicants, 1,700 freshman seats. The university accepted nearly equal numbers of male and female prospects, though, like some other schools, it got nearly twice as many female applicants. Okay, that math meant it was easier for male students to get in. 7% of male applicants were admitted compared with 4.4% of female applicants, university data shows. So wait a second. 50,000 applicants, 1,700 seats. The acceptance was nearly equal numbers of male and female, though females applied nearly twice as much as males. But you still ended up with equal numbers, effectively, of males and females. How does that work? Unless you're filtering on the basis of gender. Or that massive amounts of female applicants just didn't meet the cut academically. Okay. The Trump administration's policies may soon put an end to that advantage enjoyed by men at some colleges, admissions and higher education experts say. That advantage. Okay, so they were accepted into college because of their gender? So this Brown University has a gender test. We can only allow 50% of each gender into the year? I'm confused. While much of the president's recent scrutiny of college admissions practices has focused on race, yeah, you know why that is? Title VI. Much of the president's agenda is focused on race. I can't imagine why. Maybe it's because Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VI. What does Title VI say? It prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin in programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance, i.e., colleges that are the recipients of federal grants, federal subsidies, and so on and so forth. That might be why. Does the Washington Post understand where this focus comes from? Okay. While much of the president's recent scrutiny of college admissions practices has focused on race, these experts say his ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion is likely to hit another underrepresented group of applicants: men, and particularly white men, the largest subset of male college applicants. Likely to hit another underrepresented group of applicants. Again, white men are a marginalized group? Did I made a joke about Commander Sisko a few minutes ago. Did I go through a transporter accident and end up in the dark universe, the mirror universe? Quote, "This drips with irony," said Ted Mitchell, who I'm assuming had a very smug look on his face when he said that, president of the American Council on Education, or ACE, the nation's largest association of universities and colleges, who said he expects that colleges and universities will end any consideration of gender in admission. Good. Dogcat Fox, do you see a problem here? I'm looking for a problem. Do you see a problem? I mean, assessing people's merit on the basis of their, merit, is that a problem?
Wowie wow wow.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. Oh my God, guys. Oh my God. You mean colleges and universities not only are disincentivized from being racist because of federal law, but now because of Trump's moves, they're disincentivized from being sexist as well? What will we do? What will we do? Oh God. Quote, "The idea of males, including white males, being at the short end of the stick all of a sudden would be a truly ironic outcome. Joke's on you, white men. Donald Trump was trying to make it easier for you specifically by never naming you specifically, but just trying to end discrimination in applications. But now, you thought it was going to benefit you. Uh-oh. For years, universities and colleges have been trying to keep the number of men and women on campuses evened out at a time when a growing number of men have been choosing not to go to college. Oh, where have they been going? Some schools have tried to attract more men by adding football and other sports, promoting forestry and hunting programs, and launching entrepreneurship competitions. Nationwide, the number of women on campuses has surpassed the number of men for more than 4 decades, with nearly 40% more women than men enrolled in higher education, federal data shows. Yeah. I've heard, and I don't know if this article will say something similar, but I have heard and had it said to me for years, women earn more bachelor's degrees than men. They're more highly educated than men. And the question that reflexively in my brain, the question that always comes to mind is, okay, well, bachelor's degrees in what subjects? Because then they complain, it's like, well, you have all these well-educated women, but yet they don't represent a higher percentage of the workforce. And it's like, why does that happen? Now, I'm not standing on some pedestal here. I have an English degree. That is like the base class rubber stamp degree you could possibly get. But it's a bachelor's degree. But that doesn't suddenly mean that I'm ready to become a millionaire Fortune 500 CEO or something. So yeah, women go to college, but what are they learning? And especially in the last several years, what has been promoted as much as anything else? Public health and social justice and feminist studies and women's studies, gender studies. And how transferable are these skills to the workplace? Whereas, men aren't going to college. Where are they going? Well, they either go right to work or they go to a trade school or a technical college. And then they go and get a job. Anyway, efforts to admit applicants at higher rates based on gender are legal under a loophole in federal anti-discrimination law, one that's used to keep the genders balanced on campuses. A loophole, you say? Okay. But the Trump administration has consistently included gender among the characteristics it says it does not want schools to consider for admissions or hiring, along with race, ethnicity, nationality, political views, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious associations. Yeah, well, okay, it's not just the Trump administration. Washington Post. I don't know if you know this. There's this little thing called Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It says, and has said since 1964, that you're not supposed to hire on those elements either. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you know there have been these laws in place for years and years and years and years now that have at least tacitly implied that you should not, either by law or by implication, hire people on the basis of these elements. It's not, history did not begin on January 20th, 2025 for the second time. I don't know if you're aware. I don't know if you're aware. I forgot all of my streamer stuff. I got so excited. Let me get my stream. Okay, I gotta have my Chiron. Gotta have the comments up. I'm silly. Speaking of which, not speaking of which like you're silly. Speaking of which as in comments. I'm silly. Jill Powers of Riverdale, exactly a scribe light, but enrollment is down for every college because people of all races are starting to realize they're not getting educational value for their buck. It's down everywhere. That's the other thing too. What use is it to have a college degree when the college degree has become as useful as the high school degree is? Remember when... Well, I was not around for this era. I think I was born just about the era that this was passing on. It used to be the case that a high school diploma was a pretty good sign that you were ready for the workplace, right? And if you got a college degree, boy, oh boy, you were up in the stratosphere of status and education. Well, as time went on, the high school diploma became less impressive and less of a mark in your favor as, the economy changed and everything else. And then it was, okay, well now the college education is sort of like the bare minimum you have to really start stepping out into the workforce. And now even that has gone by the wayside. Or starting to. Because colleges have been promoting and spending their money on nonsense. And hiring teachers that aren't that good at what they do, or what they are good at is not a monetizable set of knowledge. So, yeah, colleges are desperate for people to join up. Except they've been spending years now driving people away with non-academic focuses. What's the value for money? Well, let's find out. The White House has so far not succeeded in its campaign to press a handful of elite schools to agree to the terms and sign a wide-ranging compact for academic excellence in higher education in exchange for priority consideration for federal funding. Here's the thing. If you have a college that is violating the law, and especially under Title VI, yank their funding. Just terminate it. Don't negotiate. Don't dither. I just say yank it. It says in the law it can be terminated. If you tell them, hey, we caught you violating the law, change your policies. And if they don't, terminate the federal funding. And then they have to make a show that they've changed their ways before they get it back. And I'd say, I've said this before, they have to go on probation for a minimum of 2 years of no federal funding. And then they can reapply for it after that time. And then they get audited for compliance before the federal funding is restarted. That's what I would do. If I was king of the world, that's what I would do. Quote, the racial parts have gotten a lot more attention. But I know from having spoken with practitioners who work in college admissions, they have read very clearly that it says race and gender in the administration's pronouncements about ending preferences in admission, said Sean Harper, founder and chief research scientist at the University of Southern California's Race and Equity Center. Southern California's Race and Equity Center. Quote, what I think they don't understand is that taking away the ability of colleges and universities to balance the gender composition of their incoming classes will ultimately have an impact on the college enrollment rates of white males. It is likely to impact them the most, as a matter of fact, Harper said. Okay. Do tell. Why? And then we get a sentence that's kind of cut in half here. Agreements that the administration has reached with Brown, Columbia, and Northwestern universities to settle allegations of anti-Semitism also included language about gender. In a statement announcing the Brown deal in July, Education Secretary Linda McMahon promised that, quote, aspiring students will be judged solely on their merits, not their race or sex, unquote. Again, as a sort of, equality of opportunity, I guess, extremist here. And, I mean, let's say you're right. Let's say that women and women of color, just as a matter of course or whatever, matter of statistics, end up exceeding men in scholastic merit. Or the requirements of the college on a scholastic basis, an academic basis. Where is problem? I go Russian for a second. Where is problem? I say problem no. Da? Where is problem? Asked whether the agreement meant male applicants would no longer be admitted at higher rates than female applicants, which has helped Brown keep its undergraduate enrollment at almost exactly 50-50, university figures show, even with twice as many female applicants. Spokesman Brian Clark said, quote, we have made no changes to our admissions practices in this regard, unquote. Well, if Brown University turns into a girls' college, just by, dint of merit, then okay. It'll be 4 girls for every boy. The Trump administration has also pledged to make all higher education institutions submit details about the students they admit, including their gender, to find out whether they're, quote, discriminating against hardworking American, unquote, prospective students, McMahon said in another statement. DEI needs an IRS. In order to make sure these colleges, universities, and hopefully very, very soon private institutions are complying with civil rights laws, DEI needs an IRS to check for compliance. Spokespeople for the Department of Education did not respond to questions about whether advantages in admissions based on gender will be scrutinized in the same way as purported advantages based on race. Purported advantages based on race. Purported. Oh, yeah, because, there have been no complaints regarding race-based admissions since the affirmative action decision came down. It's just a rumor. It's just something people say. Purported advantages based on race. You write an article making a case that white men in particular are going to be damaged by the absence of DEI, and then you say purported advantages on the basis of race. Except you're focusing primarily on gender and ignoring all the other races. I haven't heard anything yet that says anything about white or race. It just says men. So men, by your estimation, will be at a disadvantage now in admissions versus women because women apply more. Okay, where does the racial element come in? Universities are looking at the administration's edicts, quote, and they're saying, well, we'd rather be cautious than stick our neck out. Yeah, that's what the laws are there for, to make you second guess before you move. By continuing to give advantages to male applicants, said ACE's Mitchell, who was Undersecretary of Education under President Barack Obama. Quote, I think we will see people dropping gender preferences even though it is still within the law. Oh, no! Again, I don't understand what the problem is. Men aren't going to college. You said it yourself. On balance, men are not as interested in attending college these days as women. So, balancing your campuses because of what? An appearance of aesthetic or something? Okay, maybe I didn't go to enough college. Maybe I don't understand what the problem is here. Colleges that have been accepting men at higher rates are trying to avoid a marketing problem. Oh. They fear will crop up if campuses become too female, said Madeline Rainier, who headed admissions offices at 4 private universities and colleges and is now vice president of consulting services and dean of enrollment management for the education consulting firm EAB. Colleges worry, quote, will men look at that and think, that's essentially a women's college and I don't want to go there? Rainier said. Maybe. Or 4 girls for every boy. Or you could ask yourself, why? Tell me why. Ain't nothing but a heartbreak. Ain't nothing but a mistake. Why, even before Trump came back into power, were men not applying to colleges in the same frequency as women? Where are they going? They didn't just vanish. They've gone somewhere. Where have they gone? Could it be to trade schools? Could it be to technical colleges? Could it be something else? The military? I don't know. Not my field. But like Jill Power says, maybe the men don't see the value for money out of college these days. Especially since, ultimately, and on balance, they're going to have to be the ones who become providers for families. Quote, for the Browns and Columbias and highly selective and very competitive institutions, gender imbalance is a problem, she said. Quote, they want to create what feels like a balanced climate, unquote. Okay, so college campuses are Potemkin villages. Look at the equal numbers of men and women we have on our campus. This does not reflect the actual applications we receive or the reality of the demand for our services. But don't you want to come to our campus? The results of ending this practice could be dramatic, experts predict. In 2023, the most recent year for which the figure is available, 817,035 more women than men applied to universities and colleges, federal data shows. Boys also have lower mean scores on the SAT in writing and reading, score lower overall in the ACT, and have lower grade point averages in high school. Well, if they don't have the chops, then you're admitting... Okay. The rule remains the same, right? The rule remains the same. If you're putting men into positions or seats at school that they didn't actually earn based on your own requirements, then that's just practicing DEI, isn't it? Yeah. And if lower tier students are not allowed to go to higher education institutions because they don't make the cut, then you've been taking pity on men all these years. Well, we can't take pity on you anymore, men. Donald Trump's in office. Okay. Yeah, you know what I'd say to those guys if they thought they were going to get into a college and then suddenly they stopped their gender balancing programs? I'd say, get good, scrub. Now, are the colleges going to get the same kind of attention from male students as a result? I don't know. But then maybe that's just the way the cookie has to crumble. Quote, if we were going to eliminate preferences for men, the undergraduate population would skew to 65% female overnight, Mitchell said. And Rick Hess, Director of Education Policy Studies at the right-leaning think tank, the American Enterprise Institute, pointed out that similar predictions were made after the 2023 Supreme Court decision effectively ended race-conscious admissions practices in the case brought by a group called Students for Fair Admission. The number of Black and Hispanic people enrolled at universities and colleges increased the following year, according to the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center. Yeah, I just wonder, I can't remember, when did the affirmative action ban take effect? Like, the colleges had a period of time to wind down their programs. So they had, I believe so. I'm happy to be corrected. My understanding was that by the time the decision was made, the colleges were given a grace period to end their programs. So they had a period of time, like 6 months or something, before they had to cut them off. So the idea that there would be a sudden increase in the kinds of people they want to bring in under affirmative action occurred just after the decision doesn't necessarily mean a lot to me. I need somebody to clarify whether or not those programs actually had ended by the time the next cycle had started. Quote, before Students for Fair Admission, we heard colleges talk in apocalyptic terms of the implications for the racial composition of student bodies, Hess said. Quote, and after SFFA, there was a lot of never mind, unquote. I mean, if that is the case, that's great. If it shows that it's not all this worrying and hand-wringing and everything else. But I'd have to go back and look up the timing of things. Because I don't want to take that on face value that that's some, disproving the paranoia. The country's top 50 private colleges and universities have 2 percentage points more male undergraduates than the top 50 flagship public universities, which do not consider gender in admission, according to research by Princeton economist Zachary Bleemer. He said this suggests that at least some are putting a thumb on the scale for male applicants. Well, let's say they are. Don't. I mean, the rule remains the same. You shouldn't get an advantage based on something that has nothing to do with the requirements of the position, let's say in this case, or the seat at the college. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you should be given an academic advantage. Just because you're Black doesn't mean you should be given an academic advantage. So just focus on academic ability and put everything else aside. If that turns out to be the case, that, well, there's more women than men at colleges after colleges, then okay. Columbia took 3% of women applicants last year and 4% of men. At the University of Chicago, 5.6% of male applicants were accepted last year, compared with 3.7% of female applicants. The ratio at the University of Miami was 22.5% to 16.5%, and at Vassar College, 20.4% to 17.6%. None of these universities would respond when asked whether they would continue to accept higher percentages of men than women, and neither would others that do it, including Yale, Baylor, Tulane universities, and Pomona College. Private institutions are allowed to consider gender in admission under Title IX, the federal law otherwise banning discrimination by universities and colleges that get federal funding. That's due to a loophole dating back from when the law was passed in 1971. Yes, if you're not accepting federal financial assistance, you have fewer restrictions on what you can do. Maybe that's a loophole we should close, huh? Write to your congressman. At the time, the gender ratio was reversed, and men outnumbered women on campuses by nearly 3-2. One of the university's congressional allies, Representative John Erlenborn, Republican of Illinois, successfully led an effort to amend the measure to let private colleges and universities continue to consider gender in admissions. Erlenborn said at the time that forcing colleges to stop considering gender would be, quote, one more giant step toward involvement by the federal government in the internal affairs of institutions of higher education, unquote. Yeah, well, telling colleges that they can consider gender or have to is not the government interfering with college policies. Okay, anyway, this is an amazing article. It's wagging its finger and saying, all you racists and sexists out there, You actually did a cell phone. Oh, you got a big L on your head. Oh, look what you did. Oh, you were trying to benefit the white man, and look what you did. Ha ha, joke's on you. Amazing article. At every turn, I'm like, and? Your point being what? Oh, but who will come to our colleges if there's too many girls? Girls, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys think? Jill Powers. At Fisk, when I was there, the ratio of women to men was 14-1. And that Ivy League private school is 99% black with majority of black faculty. I was the minority, of course. Of course. Or as the case may be.
Of course! Of course!
Let's see. Mike Savage. Was the total number of applicants equal between men and women? No. Well, I mean, the example they give at Brown University was out of 50,000 applicants, only 1,700 actually had, they had 1,700 spaces, 50,000 applicants, and then the percentage of men to women accepted from the pool was something like 1.7 to 4% or something. It was something ridiculous, some really big disparity. So, no, the total number was not equal. Yeah, they specifically had a gender filtration system in the application process to make an equal number of male and female applicants. So somewhere in there, yeah, they said, okay, how many female applicants are we letting in? And now we have to count up an equal number of male applicants. So it's just DEI by, well, it's not even another name. It's just another form of DEI. It's another form of discrimination. So. You in a wheelchair, scribe. Well, I mean, my chair has wheels, but no, I am one of the overly privileged, able-bodied. Let's see. Frosted Glass. They are desperately trying to get the right side with DEI. They think if it benefits men, we'll suddenly support it. Yeah, because the argument always was, you know, what was the biggest signifier of a problem at an institution or a business that DEI was needed, right? They always talk about how, oh, you always see the same kind of people, or the board of directors was all white men, or something. DEI was needed to correct this problem. Countless times on my channel, videos that I've covered, articles and otherwise. The first and biggest red flag that was cited by DEI advocates and proponents and administrators was that some organization had too many white men, or someone would get into a room and they didn't see anybody like them in the room, and that's when I knew something had to be done, that kind of thing. So the idea that DEI has been to this point benefiting men, well, I mean, if you're telling me that there's been this less advertised institutional gender bias, then maybe that's so. And the idea that it's going away, good. I'm not cheering for one demographic or another when it comes to DEI going away. I'm like, oh no, DEI's been hurting my kind of people all this time, and now I'm very mad about that. No. That's not the value I was raised with. That's not the ethic that was instilled in me when I was a kid. It's you treat people fairly. People. Stop. Full stop. People. Not one demographic or another. Okay? It's not supposed to be a rigged game. And I know that's not how life in its totality works. I get it. But in those things that we have some control over, purportedly, as citizens of this country, that's something that we should definitely get rid of. And that is the rigged game as much as possible. You know, in every place that we can. And so, if colleges have been discriminating in positive ways for men, get rid of it. You won't see me crying. I mean, either you believe in the ethic of a meritocracy or the elements of a meritocracy and egalitarianism, or you don't. If this article made me mad, or anybody be mad about it who is a anti-DEI or anti-discrimination advocate, they would be a hypocrite. So, hey. But there's a whole bunch of other factors here, like what are these colleges actually offering, like Joe Power said, in value for money? If I'm a white male, or if I'm just a male, because they talk mostly about gender here, they didn't really address why specifically white males were in danger versus just men writ large, but okay. If I'm a male and I'm graduating high school and I think I want to start a family, and I'm a responsible individual, I want to be able to get a job and enter into the workforce where I can actually earn enough and earn a living to support a family eventually and start a career. Do any of these colleges offer anything of note for the money I'd be paying for that career? Or would I be better off joining a trade school, becoming a plumber or a carpenter, an electrician, or a technical college, or doing something that isn't what these colleges offer? You know, we have to balance it out for the sake of aesthetics. And again, like I said, you're making your college into a Potemkin village that's just window dressing as an advertisement. Is that what you should be focusing on, or should you be focusing on academic excellence in whoever you bring in, regardless of what they look like? Do you want to be known as the college that sort of rigged the game to make a pretty picture? Or are you focusing on just producing well-educated students? Period. I guess we know the answer already. This article, I think, does more damage to the argumenter than it does to whoever they were targeting it to, but that's just my thoughts. Moving on. Let's move to, the other mystery article that I found, because I was like, DEI goes away, white men damaged most, what? And then there's this. The inevitable rise of right-wing DEI. Now, see, DEI at its core is discrimination in preference of something that does not denote merit. It's, as far as I'm concerned, the philosophy behind it has no political party. DEI itself and its excuses and reasons for being as a brand name is decidedly left-wing in this country. So what is a right-wing DEI? Let's find out. Conservative Christians want safe spaces too. I think for the most part, when it becomes relevant, those places are called churches. A specter is haunting the university, the specter of the godless professor. Just as a note, I have absolutely no context for what this article is about. I'm just like, the right-wing DEI. He's been with us a long time, this corrupting figure of conservative demonology. In 1949, an undergraduate, William F. Buckley Jr., would agonize in the pages of the Yale Daily News about the threat posed by skeptical professors, whose teaching might make some students, quote, lose faith in God, unquote. A little earlier, in 1940, a professor in Tennessee, actually a liberal Christian, was fired for admitting that he was not personally convinced of the existence of a quote-unquote burning hell. In 1934, a professor at the University of Pittsburgh was likewise fired after students objected to what they saw as his, quote, flippant and sneering, unquote, posture towards Christianity. In 1913, an economist at Wesleyan University was fired for suggesting at a private club that it might be better to close churches. 1949, 1940, 1934, 1913. Okay. And last month, what was I going 88 miles per hour there? Okay, and last month, a graduate teaching instructor at the University of Oklahoma named Mel Kurth was put on administrative leave after giving a 0 to an essay on the sociology of gender by a Christian student who asserted that, quote, God created men in the image of his courage and strength, and he created women in the image of his beauty, unquote, and that the notion of gender fluidity is demonic, unquote. The month before, an instructor at Texas A&M University called Melissa McCool was fired when a Christian student objected to lessons about transgender identity. Quote, this goes against not only myself, but a lot of people's religious beliefs, unquote. Well, it also goes against many scientific truths, but sure, okay. To be sure, neither recent situation can be reduced to a clear-cut instance of a professor being punished for anti-Christian belief. It seems more like it was professors being stupid about transgender philosophy and gender ideology, the religious belief that I have a feeling that if either student had made similar statements absent any religious references, they still would have been punished. I have a feeling, but that's beside the point, I suppose. The Oklahoma student, Samantha Fulnicki, feels that she was discriminated against for being Christian, and fair-minded observers are within their rights to point out that, since Kurth's essay prompt invited expressions of personal opinion, Fulnicki should perhaps not be punished for hers. I don't think she should be punished for it, no. The professor was in the wrong on that one. Okay, those details matter, and there's a real discussion to be had about whether Fulnicki's grade was a fair one. But that shouldn't obscure the larger picture. Under pressure from conservative activists, the American Academy, especially in red states, is being forced into fresh skirmishes along one of the oldest and most contentious battle lines in the history of higher education, that between secular rationalism and religious faith. Well, okay, but I mean, there being a male and a female gender and no third gender is not inherently a religious belief. It is a scientific fact. So, yeah, I mean, these things can obviously overlap a little bit, but okay. The irony is that for the last decade, the most high-profile incidents in which religious orthodoxy and academic freedom came into conflict had to do not with Christianity, but with Islam. I can't imagine why. At Hamline University in 2022, an art history instructor was fired for showing a medieval devotional image of Muhammad. That has always been one of the stupidest things. It's like, you're not allowed to draw a picture of him. Like, or Charlie Hebdo, if we want to go to the extreme example. Parenthetical, the university eventually settled with the instructor, parenthetical, as they should have. At San Francisco State University the same year, a historian was formally investigated for almost the same offense. He had shown students in a class on Islamic civilizations a historically pertinent depiction of Muhammad. He was eventually cleared of any wrongdoing, as he should have been. At Macalester College in 2023, an Iranian-American artists gallery show, which was critical of Islamic theocracy, was paused by the college administration after some Muslim students complained. Parenthetical, the show did eventually go on, but with the glass walls of the gallery covered in black curtains. You know, I wonder why they were scared. I wonder if there's been any historical examples. You know, I'm not particularly religious, so take anything I say with a grain of salt on this one. But, you know, there is a distinct difference in religious theology, obviously, and also reactions to violations thereof. I have it under mildly good authority that Christian doctrine says that you're not to make any graven images of the Lord. And yet I see necklaces and statues and paintings and animations and films and on and on and on about nearly every religious figure in Christian theology at any particular point in my lifetime. And when this happens, you know, people aren't shot for it. Their buildings aren't burnt down. They're not having acid thrown in their faces or anything else. So there might be an explanation there. It doesn't, you know, legitimize such reactions, but at the same time, in each case, those seeking to curtail or censor imagery felt to be offensive to Muslims invoked the language of identity, harm, and diversity. Those seeking to curtail or censor imagery felt to be offensive to Muslims invoked the language of identity, harm, and diversity. Okay. I mean, we did just have that the TED Extra yesterday. The lady brought up someone eating pork and drinking wine in front of someone who doesn't do either of those things, and that being an act of fascism. So, okay. A petition hosted by the Minnesota chapter of the Council of American Islamic Relations, for example, defended the Hamline instructor's firing this way, quote, Hamline University has chosen to prioritize the safety of inclusiveness of its students and community. This decision is part of ongoing efforts to challenge the legacy of institutional racism on college campuses, unquote. In the San Francisco State case, the professor was investigated by the university's Office of Equity Programs and Compliance. At Macalester, administrators explained that the pause, quote, provides space for members of our community who expressed pain caused by pieces in the exhibition, and makes space for conversation and consideration of the multiple perspectives and experiences of Muslim communities on campus, unquote. Or you're bowing to fear of reprisals for free speech. I mean, it's one or the other, I suppose. Let's see. Advocata says, there are tons of Islamic images of Muhammad. They used to depict him quite regularly. That was my understanding, too. Let's see. Wesleyan means it's Methodist. Oh, I did not know. I do not know these things. Okay, so where's the DEI part here? Right Wing DEI. I'm either the term is being used in a way that I don't understand, or they're making a new definition for it, because I'm not quite sure I understand what this has to do with anything yet. Religious orthodoxy, in other words, has come to be defended in the language of DEI. Well, no, that's okay. I see what you're saying. That's not right-wing DEI. That's just DEI. Yes, DEI vilifies and demonizes in general, it's white, straight males. If you have any of these three attributes, then you're at a disadvantage next to anybody who does not have one or more of those attributes. That's how DEI works classically. The religious aspect, I know that, I can't say that's never come up in my years of looking at DEI, but it's rarely ever brought up because religion is one of those taboos, especially in business. I mean, businesses through DEI have been more than happy to discriminate on the basis of race, on the basis of gender, on the basis of orientation, but they still shy away from bringing up religion because that's a bridge you just can't safely cross. In general terms. But they have also obviously given open arms to any kind of diverse lived experience. So, let's see. That's why representatives of the American Association of University Professors, which found that Hamline had violated the punished instructor's academic freedom, consider their investigation to have, quote, stood against what is often referred to as left cancel culture. Stood against what is often referred to as left cancel. Yes. Someone says something that hurts someone's feelings and they have to be inordinately punished for it. Usually you're looking at a left-wing DEI type sensitivity. What if the identity politics undergirding left cancel culture was always pretty much the same as the identity politics of offended Christians? What if both are equivalently incompatible with the mission of the university? Well, I mean, it's 6 of one thing, half a dozen of the other. If someone puts on an art display that offends Christians, they shouldn't be any more punished than someone who puts on an art display that offends Muslims. Unless I'm missing something here. The Academy's therapeutic solicitude towards the wounded emotions of its students virtually guaranteed incidents like the one at the University of Oklahoma, at least once the larger political climate was ripe. In defending McAllister's handling of the controversial art exhibition, the college's president explained that, quote, the feelings of the religious also matter, unquote. Samantha Fulnicki agrees. She considers it deeply offensive to be told that her particular understanding of biblical truth is not an adequate basis for a paper on the sociology of gender. Quote, if this situation was regarding any other religion, I'm sure President Joseph Harris Jr. would apologize to them personally on behalf of the university and would assure them that they wouldn't let this happen again, unquote. I mean, it's impossible to say, right? I mean, if the student had cited passages from the Quran in making the same argument on gender, would the guy have reacted the same way? Dollars to donuts, probably not. But we don't know. It's hard to say. And again, I think I have a feeling that even if you took all the religiosity out of the argument, the professor would still be offended. But who knows? As William F. Buckley perceived with dismay almost 80 years ago, the contemporary American university and the academic freedom it supports are intrinsically secular enterprises. That was true, too, of the university in the 19th century German-speaking world, where the modern doctrines of academic freedom developed in part to protect professors from suffering fates like that of the philosopher Johann Gottlieb Fichte, who was fired from the University of Jena in 1798 on charges of atheism. Inaccurate, as it happened. I'm glad you guys are hearkening back to such relevant time periods as 1913 and 1798 in your examples. The secular ideal of academic freedom even applies to religiously affiliated colleges, not just informally, but as a matter of constitutional law. As the University of Texas law professor David M. Raban explains in Academic Freedom, From Professional Norm to First Amendment Right, 2024, Supreme Court decisions in the 1970s established that insofar as such colleges had adopted the AAUP's 1940 Statement of Principles of Academic Freedom and Tenure, they were, in the words of one decision, quote, characterized by an atmosphere of academic freedom rather than religious indoctrination, unquote, and could therefore receive government support without violating the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. And this was prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and all that good stuff. So, okay. Alan Thyler, thank you so much for the huggy, heartfelt Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowee, wow, wow.
Oh, there's an irate Alex Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Alan, very much. Appreciate it. Let's see. How long does this article go? Oh, it's almost done. Okay. The opposition between academic freedom and religious indoctrination goes back to the early period of the modern American university, a fact which the religiously dogmatic Buckley recognized clearly. That's why the subtitle to his God and Man at Yale was, quote, The Superstitions of Academic Freedom, unquote. What Buckley hated was an essential presupposition of the modern academy, that whether the question at issue is the age of the universe, the evolution of humankind, or the construction of gender roles, biblical warrants have no particular authority. That doesn't mean, of course, that the study of religious ideas has no place, including from a religious point of view, as in theology. But it does mean that objections like that of the Christian student who got Texas A&M professor Melissa McCool fired, McCool's ideas go against a lot of people's religious beliefs, should carry no weight. I mean, it is a balancing act because religion is part of society. It is part of history. It is part of people's active lives. You can't say it's not. You can try to filter it out from being that which dictates what you say or do and so on, or the basis of your academic claims. But yeah, no, it's part and parcel with many people's lives. Not everybody, but many people. I've told this story before. I'll tell it again. I took a class in college called The Bible as Literature. I think we're basically done with this article. I'm not quite sure what the Right Wing DEI, like Christian conservatives need safe spaces too. But anyway, I took the class was called The Bible as Literature. And it was a prerequisite for my English degree, obviously, or was part of it, was to fulfill a prerequisite. And the very first day, the professor came out and he took a moment at the beginning of the class and said, okay, everybody, I say this every year, and I'm going to say it again, make sure everybody's clear on this. This is not a Bible study class. We are going to be analyzing the text of the Bible as a piece of literature. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to analyze the Bible as you would any other novel. And he took fair time at the beginning. He said, so if anybody here was mistaken or confused by the class description or anything else and feel like you've signed up for something that you wanted something else to have happen, perfectly understandable. You can, go over to the admissions office or whatever and sign out or change classes or whatever else. And I understood, the assignment when I signed up for it. And so we then proceeded. At the same time, I had a sneaking suspicion that there was a large portion of the class that, if not, explicitly was using it for Bible study, they were looking at it as Bible study. So, at one point early on in the class, we finished reading Genesis. And I had never read the Bible before, not to any meaningful degree. So this was all relatively new to me. I mean, I knew the basics of many of the stories just by osmosis in my life to that point, but I never read the text per se. So read through Genesis, and then we had a discussion. And the professor was asking questions about the character of God. Tell me something that you learned about the character of God by reading Genesis. And went around the classroom and some people said some things. I can't remember if there's anything that felt more religious than others. And then he came to me. And I said, well, it is often said that God is omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient. He knows everything, is everywhere all at once, etc. And I said, well, from reading Genesis, I can see that he's, at least in the form of creation, he's all-powerful. He can create the lands and the seas and the animals and the people and everything else. But I don't see any evidence that he's either omnipresent or omniscient, because he keeps getting mad. He keeps getting surprised at what his creations are doing, and he gets angry at them for not obeying him. And it's like, well, didn't you see this coming? And if you didn't, well, then he doesn't know everything, and he's not everywhere at all at once. If he did see it coming, then he's just being sadistic for the sake of being sadistic, because he had to know what was going to happen ahead of time. Or not. And so, and again, I am not a theologian. I'm not claiming to have some expertise. Just reading the text as it was in the book. Now, as soon as I said this, as soon as I suggested that the character of God was perhaps not infallible, I got some very pointed stares from several of the other students in the room who looked at me not in a kind way. And so I was like, I was just answering the question, guys. So that was the only class I took in college that, aside from, literature analysis, that just as a matter of course brought up religious themes like reading The Crucible or The Scarlet Letter or something. That's about as much religious anything I had in my time in college. And it wasn't a big deal for me. My roommate at the time, he was a practicing Christian. He wasn't, tyrannical about it or anything. But yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I didn't see anything in there that was saying like, oh, now the right wing wants to start discriminating on the basis of their own religious beliefs. Well, if you're trying to promote the idea that Christians need to be given a special pass or something in colleges for something, I don't know that I'd say that. But if you ask for, in a sociology class, for someone to talk about gender roles, and they bring up religious teachings, that's not a punishable offense as far as I'm concerned. That's part of their understanding of the world and how they were raised. So, but I still don't quite get the title. A Right Wing DEI. Don't know about that one. Let's see. Raccoonius the Great. God the Creator would be the union of man and woman during conception if you think about it. Ooh. Advocast Diabli. I don't want to start any blasphemous rumors, but I think that God had a sixth sense of humor, and when I die, I expect to find him laughing. Possibly so. Possibly so. Frosted Glass. We need classes to bring Islam into the 21st century. It literally cannot. It is the unalterable, perfect word, etc. Any such update or revision, no, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. It hasn't happened all this time to this point. Not going to happen. Let's see. That was a Depeche Mode song. Oh, okay. I did not know. What song is that? I'm not a Depeche Mode aficionado, but I can believe it. They need to come into the 8th century for that's the other thing too. But I am a poor student when it comes to debating religion, and what little I know is probably dangerous and offensive. So, best avoid any further expanding on that. Let's do one more story here. This one comes from New York Post. State Street still using DEI to curry favor with leftist state officials despite Wall Street clampdown. Uh-oh. This is all financial economic stuff. Oh, gosh. Ugh. As we know, I am not an economist. But woke investing has faced a clampdown on Wall Street. But if its critics are to be believed, State Street, one of the biggest asset managers in the U.S., is still using it to curry favor with leftist state and local officials who control hundreds of billions of dollars in pension money, the Post has learned. I can believe it. Again, DEI is a disease, and it's not out of private business yet. We really need... I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the corporate poster child of the administration to come down on with civil rights violations under Title VII specifically, or Title VI if they accept federal contracts. If Amazon or Google or Microsoft suddenly had all of their federal contracts pulled, billions and billions of dollars, a lot of people will be changing their tunes right quick when it came to DEI policies in the private sector. Hasn't happened yet. I want it to happen. Why hasn't it happened? State Street's work involving controversial diversity, equity, and inclusion and green energy policies, where it facilitates woke shareholder votes on behalf of some of its big public pension clients, has sparked chatter on Wall Street and Washington following New York City Comptroller Brad Lander's move last month to block rival BlackRock as a manager of the city's pension fund. In a recent posting on X, Alabama GOP Senator Tommy Tuberville said State Street, which manages $8 billion in city pension money overseen by Lander, is, quote, already caving to the woke Mamdani climate agenda before he has even taken office, unquote. Lander is a key supporter of the socialist New York City mayor-elect Zohan Mamdani, who himself supports policies such as DEI and green energy. And this animation that I cannot turn off is bugging the heck out of me, although it's funny. It is funny. For its part, State Street says it's getting a bad rap, and it has some strong evidence suggesting as much. The bank offers nearly a dozen such proxy voting frameworks for pension funds, including those that appeal to red state public officials that steer clear of anything woke. It doesn't engage directly with U.S. companies to push stuff like diversity, equity, and inclusion employment policies or green energy. Rather, it facilitates shareholder votes on these measures for progressive pension fund clients, people like Lander, the fiduciary of the city retirement funds, during what's known as proxy season, when big investors get to vote on corporate governance proposals. Okay, that's a lot of words. Okay, it doesn't push DEI, but it facilitates shareholder votes on these measures. Okay. It doesn't engage directly with U.S. companies to push stuff like DEI. Rather, it facilitates shareholder votes on these measures. That sounds like, I'm using this phrase twice in one stream, which is odd. That sounds like a 6 of one thing, half a dozen of the other kind of situation, doesn't it? Okay. Yet the controversy is real. Lander isn't looking to ditch BlackRock, headed by investing prodigy Larry Fink. Great name, because it has done a bad job managing the retirement funds of the city's firemen, teachers, and police. Rather, Lander's beef is that BlackRock has gone non-woke in recent years. BlackRock has gone non-woke. Wait. In recent years, BlackRock, one of the biggest pushers of DEI, along with the vanguards of the world. What? Okay. Is this a matter of degrees? Is it like BlackRock stepped back a little bit and a little bit is a bridge too far for Lander? What? When did Sorry. When did BlackRock go non-woke? Maybe I missed that memo. Admittedly, I don't pay attention to financial institutions nearly as much as I do to public institutions on this channel, but after fully embracing corporate government policies like environmental social governance investing, the big asset manager no longer demands strict adherence to so-called carbon neutral edicts, meaning it won't force ExxonMobil to invest in windmills versus drilling. It also won't demand strict gender and racial preferences in appointing board members. Yeah, because they're running into... Okay. So, what happened, guys, is first and foremost, the financial return on pushing carbon neutral edicts finally came in, and there is none. And secondly, after years of pushing discriminatory practices in both its own business and its recipient investments, finally, yes, someone said, hey, wait a second, that tempts fate with legality, or just the appearance of impropriety when it comes to decisions on who should be in charge of things. You wouldn't want to get, audited by the federal government or something for your own internal hiring practices, would you? Bah! We're backing off. And that's going non-woke. Yeah, okay, I get you. Yeah. Being scared of public or legal liability is going non-woke. Fair enough. State Street, meanwhile, offers something known as the Sustainability Stewardship Service Proxy Voting and Engagement Policy. Okay, the policy, reviewed by the Post, dictates how the firm will push proxy or shareholder votes on shares it holds for its woke clients on a range of corporate governance edicts, including those, critics say, that are on dubious legal grounds. I could believe it. Those include, quote, progress made against deforestation and other land use related targets and commitments, and whether portfolio companies, quote, regularly identify whether there are risks related to human rights in their operations and value chain, unquote. Most controversial, critics say, are the firm's diversity standards, which hold that, quote, effective board oversight of a company's long-term business strategy necessitates gender diversity, and the level of such diversity depends on various factors including culture and progress made, unquote. Necessitates gender diversity. There are two genders, but and the level of such diversity, so the disparity between the two depends on various factors including culture and progress made, including culture. So if there's a culture that oppresses women, is that acceptable? I mean, actively oppresses women, like it's part of their, ingrained culture. And progress made. The standards also require board-level, quote, racial ethnic diversity in select markets, unquote. Well, if we're talking about American businesses and you're requiring gender quotas and racial quotas, have I got news for you? State Street's moves appear to run counter to the recent corporate shift away from DEI. You ain't just whistling Dixie. Most large companies, even such diversity stalwarts as J.P. Morgan and BlackRock, BlackRock, the non-woke BlackRock, have sought to roll back strict adherence to DEI in hiring and in business dealings, including asset management. It's amazing what happens when somebody comes along and says, hey, you see those laws over there that have been there for decades now? What would happen if we actually threatened to enforce them? It really depresses me that all of this has been allowed to go on for so long when it could have been so easily turned back. The affirmative action decision did help a lot. I'm not going to deny, and I'm glad that it's gone. But affirmative action had nothing to do with Title VII, and these businesses and their hiring practices should have been lambasted and sued into oblivion years ago. But here we are. Trump later doubled down on ending DEI, issuing an executive order that, quote, directs all departments and agencies to take strong action to end private sector DEI discrimination, including civil compliance investigations, unquote. Yeah, I'm still waiting. Still waiting. After all this time, we're now almost a year into that declaration. Where's the strong action on private sector DEI discrimination? There's the looming threat of it, right? There's been a lot of rhetoric coming out of the White House and other places. And maybe it's in process. I understand it is a murky territory trying to prove hiring discrimination in private companies. I get it. It's a lot more difficult, and there's a lot more layers you have to go through for that than you do for Title VI violations in colleges or organizations accepting federal money. I get it. And yet, if they need some tips on what organizations to focus on for rampant violation of civil rights laws, I've got a backlog of videos. Several different companies I profiled over the years. And of course, every company that's put out any kind of statement saying that they are moving away from DEI, they just told you they've been spending some amount of time in the last several years tempting fate with the law. So, press officials from State Street say there is nothing improper about how it handles DEI and other progressive shareholder votes because it's doing so at the behest of their clients, like Lander, when they demand it. Hey guys, we're not pushing any kind of discriminatory practices on businesses. We're just the middleman. They tell us what to do and we do it. The customer's always right. It also facilitates votes for conservative public officials who run pension assets in Middle America and the South. Oh, okay, well, because they facilitate votes for conservative public officials, obviously they're just fair-handed in when they do something that is not legally questionable versus something that might be legally questionable. I mean, I may run a murderous street gang, but I give out turkeys every year at Christmas time to poor folks. So, it kind of mitigates all that bad stuff I do. Quote, the sustainability policy that you're referencing is a policy that our clients can choose or not choose. Our voting and engagement policies and practices comply with U.S. law, unquote, wrote spokesman Mark Lavoie. He declined to comment on Tuberville's social media commentary. You know what? I can believe that they are legally insulated by being the middleman. But does that make it right? Officials at rival banks suggest otherwise. Quote, what they're essentially doing is laying such mandates on clients that they are enforcing on their portfolio companies, said a senior executive at a major money management firm. I mean, I'm also getting that sense too. It's like, it's not us guys. No, the client, they're asking us to do this. We're just fulfilling the client's demands. That's all. State Street said it recently revamped its policies on such matters to alert clients it won't discuss with U.S. portfolio companies such hot-button issues as DEI and sustainability. One reason is that it is also a federal government contractor. One of the primary targets of Trump's executive orders ending DEI on both the federal level and in the private sector. Say it with me, kids. What title is State Street under the restrictions of? Because they accept federal financial assistance. It manages a 25% chunk of the so-called Thrift Savings Plan, a $1 billion retirement fund for federal government employees. A White House spokesman had no comment on State Street's DEI activities. This is one of those instances where I would audit them. I'd say, hey guys, you manage $1 billion of retirement savings for federal employees. We're going to check out all of your policies, all of your programs, and your public communications to your constituent, investments regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just to make sure. I mean, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure there's no problem. I mean, now, if we find that you've been promoting in any of your policies or practices anything that might indicate a racial test or quota on race specifically or ethnicity or anything, we're going to have to pull your $1 billion contract. Anything you want to tell us before we dive into your papers? I really, 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 really wish, and maybe it's coming, maybe it's in the works for next year, I don't know. I really, really wish, really, 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 really wish that the Trump administration would yank those purse strings much harder on this subject and not just negotiate with colleges and all this other stuff. No. If you've got a private business that accepts federal money and they're pushing this stuff, or just not, well, we're not pushing it, we're just doing what our clients want. Yank them purse strings. Why should taxpayer money go to organizations that are pushing discrimination, illegal discrimination, or even tempting fate with it, for crying out loud? If you're facilitating companies to be discriminatory, we're clean, guys. Oh yeah, no, harps and halos all over the place. Come on. Anyway, yeah, the Vexorcist. I was just following orders. I swear, Colonel Klink, I was just following orders. I know nothing. Raccoonius, I still have respect for Jordan Peterson. Okay. I have been told I sound a little bit, not quite Kermit the Frog-ish enough, but somewhere in there. It's a bit different when you don't go home through the gate at the end of the day. Did I miss? Oh, wait. Oh, he's spoken to some real psychopaths in the prison system. Oh, yeah. True. Jay Blizza, Irish wristwatch. Yeah. Sounds submissive. Anyway, so there you go, guys. DEI in decline. White men most affected. Right Wing DEI. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to be, or why there needs to be a right. And yeah, State Street should be audited. I mean, that's audited for DEI. If anybody within the sound of my voice has any relation to state or federal government, or is within a 6 degree of Kevin Bacon kind of thing, I'm I'm not even joking. There needs to be an IRS for DEI. There needs to be audits for compliance with federal civil rights laws. It has been allowed to run rampant for far too long. These programs, these activities, these ideologies have become ingrained in certain institutions and businesses over the last decade that they will not go away. They will always be waiting to fester and pop up again, if not rooted out. And consequences befall those institutions that don't comply with federal law. And not something that Trump just put out. You know what? Ignore. I would say ignore Trump's executive orders. Just say, we're going to audit you to comply for compliance with pre-existing federal civil rights law. If you just did a survey of all the institutions that accept federal funding of any kind, contract, subsidy, grant, whatever, and just held them to account on Title VI alone, there would be a tidal wave of federal money being raked back. And there would be, overnight, private and public interests double-checking themselves before they put out another press release on anything that might even tempt fate with DEI policies. But the move has to be made, and it has to be made dramatically and decisively. It can't be this namby-pamby, negotiate with the college for maybe we'll give you your federal funding back, or you pay us a fine and we'll put it back. No. There has to be consequences. There has to be a serious showing of consequence. And of all the people to do it, I had hoped it would be Trump by now. And again, maybe my wishes will be fulfilled in the next year or by the end of the 4 years. I think there's been plenty of evidence put out there that a case could be made fairly easily on several major companies, at the very least on Title VI. You don't have to dig that hard. Title VI alone could yank the federal money from major corporations tomorrow if they would just do it. And they'd be justified in doing so. So anyway, that's my mini rant. I've made it before. I'll likely make it again. But let's move on. Programming note. You'll see me here Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for the next episode of TED Excellence. I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk for education and enlightenment. Also, I did forget to do one thing. I forgot to set up the link to the Discord server. So let me do that now. As I have to look around my microphone. Here, I'm looking around my microphone because I don't have a more convenient way to do this yet. Unless I get one of those, like, hang down microphones over here. It's like pointing at half of my face. Maybe if I do that. Otherwise, in the chat right now, guys, there's a link to the Discord server. If you'd like to join the Discord server, click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word tells me that you're not a bot. Actually watch the stream and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is... What was that fancy word that was used earlier? Oh, dang it. I suddenly forgot it. Okay. Lousy memory. Hello, lousy memory. There you go. That'll tell me that you watched this stream because there was a word that was used in one of the articles that I had a lot of fun saying because it was fancy and it made me feel smart while I was saying it. And it just... So, bad memory. Hello. Oh, lousy memory. Hello, lousy memory. And I'll know that you watch the show. Otherwise, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or, guys, at the top of the chat box, the link to the GoFundMe for Tara Sin, aka Evelyn. Her house burned down. She needs some help. Please, if you can, a couple of bucks. But even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that again. Everyone, hope you have a good rest of your Monday. Hope you have a good rest of the week ahead of you. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.